1 in 5 cars sold anywhere in the world last year was electric. That is not a trend anymore. That is a shift. And for most people considering an electric car, the first question is always the same. What happens to the battery? How long does it last? And what does it cost when it dies? Today, we are going to answer that question properly, with real numbers, real brands, and a very honest look at what the data actually says, versus what people are afraid of. Because those two things are very different, and understanding the gap between them might be the most important thing you hear before buying your next car. Let us start with the fear. The battery in an electric car is not like the battery in your phone or your television remote. It is a massive, complex, and very expensive piece of engineering that sits under the floor of the car and powers everything. In most electric vehicles, that battery makes up about 40% of the total cost of the car. Not 40% of one part, 40% of everything. So when people hear that a battery might need replacing one day, the mind immediately goes to the worst place. And in some cases, the worst place is justified. A BMW i4 owner was once quoted $92,000 for a battery replacement after an electrical fault. A Tesla Model S pack can run anywhere from $15,000 to over $20,000 out of warranty. A Mercedes EQS battery replacement is estimated at $15,000 to $20,000 or more. In Malaysia, replacing an EV battery, depending on the model, can cost anywhere from 30,000 to over 100,000 ringgit. Those numbers are real, and they are terrifying. But here is where the story gets more interesting. A study tracking nearly 15,000 electric vehicles found that battery replacements due to actual failure have happened in only 1.5% of all EVs ever made. For cars built after 2016, that number drops to well under 1%. And for the newest generation of EVs built after 2022, the failure rate is just 0.3%. In other words, out of every 1,000 modern electric cars on the road today, fewer than 3 will ever need a battery replacement due to failure. The battery is not dying, it is fading. What actually happens over time is not sudden failure, it is gradual degradation. A large analysis of over 22,000 electric vehicles found that the average battery loses about 2.3% of its capacity every year. After 8 years of normal driving, most EV batteries still hold around 80 to 85% of their original range. Think about what that means in practice. A car that once did 400 kilometers on a full charge will still do around 330 to 340 kilometers after 8 years. For most people, that is still more than enough for daily life. So, why is everyone still afraid? Because the fear is not really about failure, it is about what happens if you are the unlucky one. And in some parts of the world, being the unlucky one is a very different experience depending on where you live. In the United States or Germany, if your EV battery fails outside warranty, you have options. There is a growing market of third-party specialists who can replace individual battery modules instead of the entire pack, cutting costs dramatically. There are refurbished battery suppliers. There is real competition that keeps prices from going completely out of control. In Malaysia, that ecosystem barely exists yet. If your battery fails outside of the manufacturer warranty here, you go back to the official service center and you pay whatever they tell you. There is no second quote. There is no independent specialist down the road with a better price. There is no refurbished pack market to soften the blow. And the warranty itself is where things get complicated. Most manufacturers offer an 8-year or 160,000 kilometer battery warranty. Within that window, if your battery capacity drops below 70% of its original level, they will repair or replace it at no cost. Toyota goes further. Their hybrid batteries from 2020 onwards are covered for 10 years or 150,000 kilometers. But the moment that warranty expires, you are on your own. And here is the thing about Malaysia specifically. Malaysians do not keep cars for 15 years. The typical ownership cycle here is 5 to 7 years, sometimes less. People trade in, upgrade, move on. That culture works perfectly with petrol cars, where the second and third owner still has access to any workshop in the country. With an electric car, the second owner is buying a vehicle that may have 3 or 4 years of warranty left, or none at all. And if something goes wrong, the bill lands entirely on them with no safety net and no alternatives. This is not a Malaysian problem. This is the problem facing every developing and mid-income market that is pushing hard into EVs right now. Indonesia, Thailand, India, Vietnam, Brazil. Every one of them is accelerating EV adoption while the support infrastructure is still being built. Malaysia just happens to be one of the most vocal and visible examples of exactly this tension. The global EV revolution is real. The technology is genuinely impressive. Batteries are lasting longer than anyone expected, and replacement costs are falling every year. By 2030, analysts project that battery pack prices will be less than half of what they are today. But right now, in 2025 and 2026, there is a gap between the promise of electric mobility and the reality of owning one in a market that is still figuring out what to do when things go wrong. The battery will probably be fine, the data says so clearly, but probably is doing a lot of work in that sentence. And in a country where the average car buyer cannot afford to be the exception, probably is not quite enough.